This is Alexa Linton, and you're listening to the Whole Horse Podcast. I'm coming to you from the Cowichan Valley on beautiful Vancouver Island in Canada, and I'm excited to be bringing amazing instructors from around the world to share their knowledge about all the ways that we can keep ourselves and our horses well and happy, and about some of the cutting edge techniques, training, and different aspects that are coming into the horse industry and changing it from within. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm excited about the times that we live in and the shifts that are happening in the horse industry before our eyes. Let's get started. Hi everyone, it's Alexa Linton here, and you're on the Whole Horse Podcast. I'm here today again at home with my dear friend and colleague Breanne Ellison, and really excited today to be speaking to something that's very near and dear to my heart, something I'm very passionate about, and that is manual therapy practice and body work and with horses, and doing that work to aid their well-being and really release barriers to health. So Breanne is here. She's actually another neighbor of mine, and she's driven over here, and she's talking with us today at Firefly Farm. And thank you so much for coming, Breanne.
Thanks for having me.
Breanne is just getting over a cold because it seems to have plagued this valley.
Yes,
this cold.
I apologize.
So hopefully you can be able to hear her well. And we're going to be talking today about a few different things. First of all, I wanted to introduce Breanne because she's a really important part of the Whole Horse Apprenticeship, and she's the person that I get to work on Diva when I can't figure things out. And you may have realized by now that sometimes it's hard to work on your own horses. Yes. So Breanne is my go-to when something's up with Diva and I'm not quite sure what it is. And that means a lot because they don't really let a lot of people touch my horse. So yes, she's very full of wisdom and knowledge. And yeah, thanks for being here today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be doing this with you.
Finally. So I just wanted to start off, Breanne. Will you tell us just a little bit about your background and sort of where you've come from here?
For sure. And again, sorry about my voice today. So I grew up on Vancouver Island. I always loved horses my whole life, of course, as most of us do, I think. And I started my bodywork journey about 6 years ago at the BC College of Equine Therapy. I worked for 2 years and learned so many different things.
Riley always starts playing with his bone as soon as...
There we go.
Bones away. Apparently we're going to talk about bones today, which is true.
That's right.
Thanks, Riley.
So, I started at the BC College of Equine Therapy. Once I graduated from there, something had surprised me. I thought I would finish my 2 years and have my education and go off and work on horses, which I did, but I realized it actually opened a can of worms and I just couldn't stop learning. So I took some classes through Equinology, where we did massage, myofascial release, more anatomy, and I just kind of keep on learning every single year.
It's true. I watch her go away to courses all the time, and I'm like, oh, what did you learn this time?
My vacation every year is a course. Every year.
Yeah, and you're in a pretty cool course right now. What are you learning at the moment?
Yeah, so right now I'm taking an online class through the University of Guelph. It's equine exercise and physiology, which is totally stretching my brain. The instructors are amazing and so talented and so smart. So it's been really cool to learn from them, and our main textbook is by Dr. Hilary Clayton, which she is just a wealth of knowledge in this industry. So by the end I'll be able to form a conditioning plan for horses.
Yay.
Which is really cool, and base it on their specific muscle fibers depending on their breed, their goals, checking their vitals, and also having a little look at our nutrition, electrolytes, all those kinds of things as well. So that's a really, really cool one that I'm enjoying right now.
And you'll have a fit pony.
And I'll have a fit pony. That's part of the course. My pony has to become fit properly.
I'm trying to tag Diva along in there because she also needs to become fit.
Yes, and so my horse JD, he is learning good work ethic. He's building good muscle. I've actually seen his top line come up already, which is great. Just with our more consistent riding. So it's been really cool. Riding is usually one of those things that I just do, for fun and for my hobby, but I can also combine it with my learning and my work, focusing on my own horse as well.
Wow, that's great. I would love to hear more about that for sure. I'm sure a lot of us would, because conditioning is a big deal, and especially if we're looking at this body work piece. I know for myself, and I'd love to hear your opinion about this, there's rarely a horse that I go out and see that doesn't have something to work with.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Horses in general, they have a lot of things going on musculoskeletally, partially I know because of what we actually ask of them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm sure you're finding too that they aren't conditioned necessarily for the things that are being asked of them, right?
And sometimes, they have the muscle in their body, but sometimes they're lacking the supporting core muscles, their core stability, and bringing their top lines up, and, hollow in their wither pockets, or building muscles that, allow them to do their job, but don't really support their body. So like the bottom of their neck, brachius.
Oh my gosh, yes. Everybody, if you've seen that bulge at the base of your horse's neck, like underneath, and then like that usually the little where they're inverted at the top of the neck generally, and they like going around like I call giraffe.
Yeah, giraffe horse.
Yeah, giraffe horses.
Yeah. And it's really common, because often it is, body imbalances where the horse, they just physically feel like they can't use the proper muscles to lift their, engage their abs, lift their back, round their neck.
And particularly carrying a rider.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you throw in the tack piece as well. If the saddle's not feeling so great, they want to hollow their back. And sometimes lean into the bit and, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's so much to this, both myself and Breanne. I trained through the BC College of Equine Therapy as well, and so I did, and now I'm training in osteopathy, thinking about this idea of what happens when there are places in the body that don't move, and things that aren't truly harmonized with the whole of the body and the being. We wanted to chat today, and I think we'll get to this, but about the pelvis a little bit. The reason we wanted to do that, I always find the pelvis very fascinating in horses because it's sometimes a little bit overlooked. Yeah. And it's often a source of issue for horses, especially those horses that go inverted, that don't want to come together or collect. I'm putting that in quotation marks. And that horses that, display sometimes aversive behavior like bucking or rearing, not wanting to go forward, things like that. So we'll get to that a little bit later on in the program here, so stick with us. But, for now, Breanne, I'd love to chat with you more about this sense of what are the big things that you tend to see? Like you've now worked on hundreds upon hundreds of horses. Yeah. What are some of the themes?
So definitely that body posture of that hollow back and that built up underside of the neck. That's a really common one. Horses that don't want to stand square. So if they're not wanting to stand square in the hind end, often that can relate to a pelvic issue. Same with the front end, that can be issues as well. When I first walk into a barn, the first thing I listen for as a horse comes down the alleyway is the sound of their hooves on the ground, on the cement or whatever they're walking on. And if they're even, that can tell you a lot to begin with. And I know you're farriers and vets, and I think we all kind of do that instinctually, is just start listening. You engage all your senses. And then, you'll look at their body posture. How do they want to stand?
Can they even stand still?
Yeah, can they stand still? Can they, actually support their body properly? Are they camped underneath? Are they, out behind? But yeah, going back into pelvis is a bit, that's one thing that is really common that I see lots is either lack of range of motion in the pelvis.
Yes.
Imbalance.
I have that too.
You must be a rider.
Right? How many riders out there
all of us.
Tight pelvises.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
More on that to come.
Yes, to be continued.
Yeah.
So yeah, excuse me, not standing square. And then looking at the symmetry of the pelvis. So, how often do we, just as horse owners, ask our horses to stand nice and square and take a few steps back and just look at their body? Just look at it. The height of the pelvis on either side, the height of your tuber sacrale on either side, your tuber coxae, if you're getting into the anatomy.
Yeah. Just to clarify, everybody, tuber coxae is if you're going out on the pelvis, they're the big bones on the sides there that you're going to slide out to, and the tuber sacrale are at the top, right at the kind of like the crest of the bum there.
Yes. I know. I wish I could see a picture.
I know. We'll put a picture on the podcast, like underneath the podcast, so you guys can look at the anatomy here.
Excellent.
Yes.
So, and just even if you don't know what they are, but just looking at the bones on the body and saying, well, is this side the same height as that side? Does it look further forward? Feeling and making sure the horse is square when you're doing that, so that you have an accurate reference point. And I'd say that most horses are not. They're not even on both sides. One side may be shifted forward, one may be higher than the other, and those are things that are really, really common. And can be helped with some body work usually.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what do you find? I mean, I know for me, I've found pelvises actually quite receptive. I found horses in general quite receptive to body work. Let me just phrase it that way.
Oh, yeah.
But it's quite amazing, actually, if you like really, it doesn't take, they're not stubborn like us humans.
No.
In that way.
Love it.
They usually love it, and they're usually very receptive, and their bodies are usually very receptive. Do you find that?
Absolutely. And horses, this is kind of getting to another piece as well, but I find they're often very intuitive as well. Like they want to feel better. They want their bodies to feel good. And sometimes I'll feel them, when you're doing massage, especially, they'll kind of move their body into where they, really want to network. So if you're really tuned in and listening, sometimes, they will be shifting into an area that they want the work.
Absolutely. I often talk, they often speak of fulcrums and osteopathy, and I often think of horses as being really, really good at using us as fulcrums. So as a body worker, you'll actually feel this, where a horse will be like, okay, just stay there for a second. And they actually kind of like figure out how to shift whatever's happening in their body with you there. They just needed a little bit of help as a workaround. It's pretty cool to feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so with the pelvis, what are some of the things that you tend to, like, what are your go-to tools?
My go-to tools. So first, when I'm looking at a pelvis, I always look at it first, I make sure I have a look. Does a vet need to come see this horse? So that's my first thing that I look for. Is the horse lame? With an undiagnosed lameness, I'll never work on the horse before the vet's seen them. You don't know if there's a fracture or something in there that's, those are really important things that need to be addressed by a veterinarian. So that's my first thing I look at. Is there heat? Is there swelling? Is the horse really, really sore in that one spot? Those are all things that I would say, hey, you know what? Let's talk to your vet first, and then we can do body work later if the vet says that's okay. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. After that, I want to assess the pelvis. That's your biggest tool, is your assessment. I think that was the number one thing in the BC College. Dave was always saying 90% of your treatment is your assessment, knowing what's going on. So feeling that pelvis, feeling, do we have a rotation? Do we have a shear? Do we have range of motion? That's my go-to. And then as far as tools, it depends on what the tissue is doing in the body, what the horse is leaning into. Sometimes I'll use myofascial release techniques. One instructor that I love, who I've learned so much from, and a book that I really like, is by Ruth Mitchell Galladay. It's called Facilitated Healing Through Myofascial Release. And it has some incredible pictures in it, and assessment techniques, and myofascial release techniques to use. And that's one that I have learned a lot from and tend to pull a lot from in my work. So that's your myofascial release. Massage. My biggest thing that I use is massage. I always feel that, our muscles are pulling the bones. So if we can soften the muscles, sometimes we can create a little bit more balance in the bony structures. So I always want to make sure the soft tissue is released before we go to the next step. You know, chiropractic as well. I don't do chiropractic, but I have chiropractors I love to call. And I think that's a really important part as a body worker is you're looking at the horse holistically and knowing when it's time to call in another team member.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Is this something that soft tissue can fix? Would this horse actually benefit more from chiro at this time? And of course, we talked about the vet piece, and also looking at foot balance as well. You know, is this actually something that the farrier needs to come in on?
Or like dentistry, is dentistry required, right?
Totally.
We talked in Jackson Holmes' podcast about how much the balance of the teeth in the mouth is impactful of the pelvis, right?
Absolutely, And I think that's one of your biggest assessment techniques is just knowing, okay, well, who's the person for this job? You know, today. You know, is body work the thing today, or does something else need to come first?
Absolutely.
You know, can we help things today with some body work and then call someone? You know, just knowing when it's time to call the right person in.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Because there's, you know, I really think, you know, what Breanne is saying here is so imperative, like in terms of, you know, our relationship to each other. You know, Breanne and I work in the same community. We do similar work with horses, but, you know, I think we're really respectful and like inspired by each other's work, and we understand each other's gifts and where we can kind of, you know, help each other around things. So I refer to Breanne a lot because I don't work a ton myofascially. I prefer hanging in the woo-woo zone, and you know, Breanne refers to me when she's got weird stuff going on.
We're too far into the woo-woo zone,
right? Yeah, pretty much. So, you know, and that's really fun,
true.
and I think it's so important for all of the horse industry. I think we can get into that competitive mindset a little too much, and that there's so much room for collaboration. I've never lost anything by referring to someone else, or, you know, my client respects me more, the horse gets better, everyone's happy. You know, they refer me because they know that I was there for the right reasons and my heart was in the right place. I've never found that it's ever, you know, impeded anything. In fact, it's always raised things up for me. So
absolutely. And I think that's so important, is just having that those partnerships and, you know, relationships with other people in the horse industry, and like you said, it's, you know, as long as your bottom, your main rule is you know, doing what's in the best interest of the horse.
Absolutely. Every single time
I think that you're in the right place.
Love that. All right. Yeah, you hear that, everybody? And I know that you all get it. But it is so important to reiterate, right? Because, you know, when we just come back to that focus, then we know that we're really moving from a space of you know, caring and love, and, you know, working towards the healing of that animal, which is the priority. That's why we're here.
That's why we're there. That's why we do what we do. Make them feel good, make them feel better.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to be collaborating with Breanne coming up here in June for the Whole Horse Apprenticeship. We're doing a retreat together specifically for Whole Horse Apprenticeship participants. So if you haven't signed up yet, there's still an opportunity. So just so you know, you can't go to the retreat until unless you sign up for the course. So so we're going to be teaching a bunch of manual therapy, you know, for you to work with your horses and learn more about your horses, and so it's pretty exciting. I'm pretty stoked.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Totally. So, you know, as we're here today, we want to share with you, you know, I definitely want to pick Breanne's brain a little bit more about the pelvis in some ways that we can help our horses. You know, we've already talked about the assessment, so, you know, being really aware, and I think with horses so often it's like really, you know, I would love your opinion on this, but this idea of you know, building our perspective. So like seeing more, I guess is what I want to say. Right? So that I'm actually like paying attention to what their gait is like, and does that change under saddle? And, you know, like if I watch them from behind, do both hips move evenly through? Are they tracking up? Like these are all things that can give us lots of clues, right?
And I think too, like if it's something that you've never done, you know, which a lot of horse people just haven't, it's just not something that we typically do. It's just, you know, look for that, you know, evenness of the pelvis necessary. We'll look for things like gait abnormalities, and there's lots of things as horse people we look at, but some of these more specific things, you know, are new for a lot of people, and it can be daunting.
Yes.
You know, to think, oh gosh, I have to look at all these things, you know, is that normal? Is that off? You know, but I think there are some tools you can use that make things a little bit more, you know, clear, a little easier. One of the things that I love to give people to use are like just little sticky labels, like, you know, little nailing labels. And just finding that tubercox you were talking about, that outside of the pelvis, and just having one of those, it's like a little wing, just sticking it on the top of that tubercox.
Oh, that's a good idea. I've never done that.
One on each side, and then you see these two little white wings, you know?
Oh my gosh, of course. And then you're like, it's one higher than the other.
Exactly.
It's one more forward than the other.
You gotta make sure you have the wings on, you know, nice and even. But then it also draws your eye to, what am I supposed to be looking at? If this is so new, you know, totally new for you, your eye goes exactly where it needs to go.
Totally.
And you're not worried about all the different pieces, you know? And then you can move your labels. Okay, well now let's put my labels, you know, even if we're going down lower, let's put them on the hocks, you know?
Absolutely.
You can even use the little round sticky dots, the colored ones too, for stuff like that.
That's such a great idea. I feel like I want to do that.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's really a good place to start, and comparing horses too.
Totally, getting your hands on different horses if you're comfortable. I know you also had one trick with binder twine.
Oh yeah,
that was a great one. I really like that one where you take a piece of binder twine and you measure from the same point on the wither back to the tubercoxy on both sides. Yes. Right?
Absolutely, and that's funny. I haven't used that one for a while, but that's a great one to refer to. Yeah. The key to that is making sure the horse is perfectly square.
Yeah, I'm sure, because even if they're tilted a little bit,
then you're going to get a weird reading. But I love finding things that, you know, the everyday horse person can do. Like, everyone's got baler twine or binding twine.
Completely.
You know, you don't have to go out and buy these special tools.
Totally.
Sure, you could use a tape measure if you want, but really, if you hold one point of that baler twine on the withers in the same spot, and you pull it back to tubercoxy on one side, and then you take that string
just over the top.
Yeah, over the top to the next tubercoxy, you'll be able to see real quick if there is a difference in distance there.
Absolutely. Same with the height, right? From the ground to that tubercoxy as well. You can see if like they're even on both sides.
Absolutely. And super simple, you know. Just grab a piece of twine out of your barn and go have a look. Go have a look at your horse.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super fun.
So if someone found an imbalance in the pelvis or an asymmetry, how might they expect that to show up in their horse? And then, you know, I want to, after that, get into how they might help with that.
Yeah. So with imbalances in the pelvis, like if you find something going on with your horse, sometimes you'll notice that they won't pick up one lead. You know, so say your horse always goes to the left lead, no problem, but they'll never pick up that right lead, and you just can't figure out why. And, you know, your riding's balanced, your saddle's fitting, you know, your trainer's always telling you, come on, you know, try and get that lead. Your aids are the same both sides. Sometimes it's really a physical problem in the horse's body, which is often the pelvis.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that people will see.
Especially in the canter, I find.
Yeah.
Because they're really having to bear a lot of weight back there.
Exactly. And that leg they have to push off from, you know, can be really affected. The other thing too is even horses that are reluctant to go faster than a trot because of that leg that needs to be pushed off into your canter or even in a gallop. You know, if the pelvis is imbalanced, that's something that'll happen as well. Yeah. So yeah, and you know, like you said earlier, even issues like bucking and rearing and behavioral issues, you always have to look at those. Well, why is the horse doing that? Like, is that a bodywork thing? Could be the pelvis, could be something totally different in the body.
But it does mean that they're not comfy moving forward.
Yeah.
It's a general rule.
Absolutely. There's something going on, and let's try and figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Yeah.
So how might, you know, someone help? I know that, you know, getting someone out like you or maybe is something, but is there any way that they can help kind of immediately to improve?
One thing that I give to clients a lot is stretching.
Yeah.
You may not fix your pelvis 100%, but with just stretching, but it is a really great technique to loosen up the muscles that are around the pelvis, around the hind limb, and help to create a little bit more range of motion, and just make your horse a little bit more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So one that I love to do, this is my go-to, is if you stand next to your horse facing the opposite direction of them. So you're looking at their tail well, I guess you're not.
Behind them.
So you're pick up the hind leg.
Yeah.
Let's reverse.
Yeah. Trying to describe this when you can't see us.
I'm such a visual person. I always love showing and pictures and demonstrating. Words are harder. Okay, so pick up your horse's foot like you're going to clean it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easiest thing to do. So you have the horse's leg up in the air. You want to make sure it's in its natural line of motion, so straight back. You're going to retract or bring the leg back behind the horse like you're cleaning the foot, but you're going to lower the toe right down to the ground.
This is one you've given me for Diva before.
Yes.
So I'm terrible at doing.
It feels weird at first. Everyone wants to lift it really high, and that's a good stretch too. But it doesn't target what I love to target, which
wasn't it hip flexors, inner adductors, that sort of thing. Yeah,
and you can kind of feel it on yourself when you do a little bit of a lunge with your toe cocked a bit on the human body. Yeah. Just retracting that hind leg, keeping the toe nice and close to the ground, and the idea is to get the toe as close to the ground or on the ground as you can. Yeah. So that's one that I love to give people. The other thing you can do from that position, lift the toe a little bit off the ground, and you can do little circles with that leg. Okay. So clockwise, do about 10 to 15, and then counterclockwise. Whenever I stretch, I always stress to people to make sure you're within the horse's comfort zone.
Absolutely.
If you're pulling too far or too hard, you do have the risk of tearing fibers, and it's just not comfortable.
No.
And what I always tell people is like, okay, if I asked you to do the splits right now, I don't know many people that can do the splits, but if I asked you to do the splits right now and you were where, you were comfortable, which maybe a few feet off the ground, a few inches, I don't know how far you can get, Alexa. I can't get very far.
Not very far, no. I wish I could get there.
So if you're, trying to do the splits and you're kind of at your comfort zone, and then I came down and I pushed down your shoulders, you would probably never want to do the splits with me around again.
Oh gosh, no. It feels so unsafe.
Yeah, and it hurts, and that's not fun. So that's what I always tell people, when you're stretching your horses, you are that person that could potentially be pushing them down in the splits. So just remember that feeling, how uncomfortable that can be. Yeah. That's why I always say, okay, don't pull too far. So when you pick up that leg and you start to stretch it, and this is with any of your stretches in the horse.
And can I ask, do you tend to like people to do it when that horse is a little bit warm, like when they've done something?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's a really good point that I often will tell people too is go, lunge your horse or ride for 15 minutes, even go for a walk, a little trot. Just get some warmth on those muscles so they're a little bit more pliable. You have less risk of tearing fibers, and you're going to have a better quality stretch if you're a little bit warmed up. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And so when you're stretching, finding that area where it feels easy, and you'll get this after you stretch a few horses. You'll feel that how it's easy to pick up the leg and bring it to a certain position. Then all of a sudden it starts to get hard. It's a little bit sticky. Yeah. Hover in that little area there. Yeah. If you err on the side of where it's easy for that horse, usually after a few seconds, they'll go, they'll take a big breath, and they'll stretch it a little bit farther.
Totally.
And that, I feel, is a sweet spot. That is your good stretch.
Yeah, and in osteo we call that, staying within the spring and dialoguing with the tissues.
Yes, I love that.
Horses love dialogue, remember. So they don't like it when they don't get a chance to actually be a part of the conversation and we're just forcing something upon them. So they want to be a part of it, and they want to have that actually builds trust for them. Yeah. On a number of levels. I'm not just talking about stretching, but like,
it does.
Yeah.
And that's such a great point. And it's funny, I do say that all the time in my sessions, is I often will tell clients, it doesn't maybe look like it, but the entire time I'm with that horse, we're having a conversation.
Totally.
You know, even if I'm talking to the client, my hands are having a conversation with the tissue. You know, in stretches, you're having a conversation with that horse. Well, if the horse moves away from you or towards you or tenses or releases, or, you know, the eyes start blinking, you know, really deep and heavy, or yawns, that's all part of the conversation.
Even the other things, like, you know, when that horse's ears start twitching back or their tail starts going, these are all the things.
Yeah.
You know, I know for myself, when I first started learning body work, I was oblivious to everything. I was so ungrounded. This was like, 2003? And like, you know, I do recall that first time, you know, the first month at equine therapy school, and Dave sends you out to like work on horses, and I think it was like massaging the neck, right?
Yeah, first section. And
I kid you not, like every horse that I tried to work on, like just basically was like, and no, you're not even touching me. Like, that's it. And part of it was I wasn't present in my body. I wasn't grounded, and I had no sense of what they actually needed and how to keep them safe. And so I always really share that, and I'm sure you do the same. It's like, connect with the breath, feel your feet grounding into the earth, like, you know, get steady in yourself first. So that you can listen, right? Because that listening, that dialogue is super subtle. It's not like they're gonna, you know, be screaming in your ear, stop it. It's like a little twitch of the ear or a little bit of a tension in the muscle.
And I always say, you know, that's a good point. Horses usually whisper first, and then they'll talk, and then they'll yell. So if you don't listen at the whisper, then you're going to have these louder...
The escalation,
which we try and keep it to a whisper, where we go, oh, that's a little bit too much pressure. Oh, that's uncomfortable. Or, oh, sometimes it's even like a young horse is just getting tired of standing there, or it's time for a poop, or, you know, like it's hay time, or, you know, they have all these little signals in their body. So just being tuned in and listening when it's a whisper, then you have way more trust with that horse in the end. And you end up having a way better session with them.
Absolutely. Rapport building really, you know, when working with horses is like paramount. It really is. Because otherwise they don't let you in. That's the reality of it. You don't get anywhere.
That's right. And we're, you know, when we're working with them, that's I think a key thing as well, is we're working with that horse. We're not doing something to the horse. We're doing something with them.
that they want to have done.
Because, you know,
and they're consenting
animal, they, you know, you gotta be on the same page. Just have to be on the same page.
Absolutely. And for you, I know for myself, and I don't know if this is the case for everybody, but I you know, this is something that I haven't really talked about on the podcast, but I always ask permission before I work on a horse. What would you say to that?
I think, you know, that's such a great idea. That's something I usually look for more when I'm doing an energy session. But you know what? You're right. It is a good idea. You know, it is, any of those work that we do is putting the horse in a somewhat vulnerable position. You know, you're asking, you know, we're often finding places that don't feel great. You know, they're ouchy spots. Things are imbalanced. Horses in the wild, I have to remind people that if they're sick, injured, or, you know, not doing so well, in pain, they would get kicked out of their herd. You know?
And that is paramount. That basically means death.
So, you know, when you're asking them to show you all these spots and be vulnerable and, you know, allow you to see these ouchy spots and this pain or whatever it is in the body, you're asking a lot of them.
That takes a lot of trust.
It does take a lot of trust. And so I think you're on the right track, asking for permission, making sure we can actually do this work.
Absolutely.
And that it's more of a partnership.
We were dealing with consent. I think very often in horses we kind of go in with the assumption that, you know, we're just allowed to kind of you know, travel in this territory where it's like, okay, like let's you know, what if we take a step back? I do it all the time with Diva, and even when I ride, I actually ask her permission every time, and or like sometimes I forget, but you know, as a general rule, I do. And you know what, it makes for a more willing partner, because she's like, okay, like, I know that if I'm having a saddle fit issue, or if something's going on with my body, or, you know, or I need help with something, that there's actually like a checkpoint where you can touch base with me, and I can let you know that actually, no, I'm not okay with you climbing on my back right now and asking me things like, right?
And I think that's so great, as, you know, having the horse know that they will be heard.
Totally.
You know, if they want to share whatever's going on, and it comes out in all sorts of different ways. You know, you can go down your animal communication path and your, you know, telepathy, that kind of thing, or it could be in your behavior.
Purely body language.
Purely body language.
Absolutely.
You know, not even looking at the woo-woo stuff.
Not even. No.
It may even just be body language, but just, you know, making sure that they know that they're heard when they're trying to show you something, you know, communicate something's going on.
Yeah.
Know that they're being heard and listened to.
Absolutely, because oftentimes when we get to that, what Breanne referred to as the yelling,
yeah.
the shouting zone, that's going to show up as behavior issues and bucking, maybe rearing and biting, like the things that they're like, I can't physically do this for you. This is not something that I'm capable of, and I need this looked at. I need to like be heard around this, right? Totally. I have never really met a truly mean horse.
No.
Ever.
No.
I've met a horse that's in a lot of pain. Yeah. That lashes out. You know.
And that's a really good point. You know, that's so true. Like, Sam, I've worked on some horses that people would call them dangerous
or bad, right?
Because you're right, you know, they, especially, you know, I find horses with pelvic imbalances. It's
right?
interesting.
That's a big one
today. I'm thinking of a couple, particular ones. Where,
well, if it got really woo-woo, that's like root chakra, sacral chakra, safety, kidney meridian.
Good point.
Yeah, here we go on the woo-woo.
It's all coming full circle.
Totally.
But yeah, you know, there's some horses like you touch their abdominals, and it just hurts so bad that leg will come up in the air.
Absolutely. They can't help it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if you're in the line of fire, then you're the one that's going to get that hoof, you know? So, yeah, you know, you're right. These horses are usually in pain. It's not necessarily that they're, you know, they're intending to be mean or intending to be dangerous, but, you know, they usually just hurt.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we're gonna just, you know, we have a shorter time today, which is all right. Because Breanne, her energy levels are doing great, though.
I haven't coughed too much.
You totally haven't. Yeah. Breanne will be a future guest as well, so don't you worry. We'll get lots more in depth as we go along. But just wanted to, we shared about stretching. Is there anything else with pelvic work that people can do at home? Is there anything else you would recommend at this point? Or?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, even some basic massage techniques can be so great. Yeah. One thing that I love, is even just effleurage, taking your two hands.
Absolutely.
And again, I'm such a, I love the hands-on showing people apart, so I'll do my best to explain this. But hopefully we'll see you guys in their little retreat, and we can go over this in person. But even just taking your hands, you know, first grounding, tuning in, feeling the tissue underneath your hands in the pelvic region. So say your gluteals, your big hind end muscles in the top of your pelvis there, and doing some long, nice strokes over that area to start things off. Working down through the hamstring, so that big kind of the butt cheek, of the horse. Yeah. You know, doing some circles down.
Under the tail there. Yeah.
Under the tail. There's your sacrotuberous ligament that's down there behind the tail, and that can be a crucial part of pelvic imbalances.
Absolutely.
So even looking from a myofascial perspective, just resting a little bit of pressure, light pressure, for about 90 to 120 seconds, which seems like forever. Yep. But just in that area of that sacrotuberous ligament, which maybe we'll post a picture later, that you can see what I'm talking about. You have no idea. But, you know, even just that, you know, feeling both sides, seeing if it feels like there's a difference on either side, resting some pressure there and helping it to release.
Yeah, and you'll see these really cool things happening with your horse often, you know, especially if you're really listening. And when you're working on the pelvis, everybody, this is the time to really listen.
Yes. Oh, yeah, safety. We should do a
safety first.
Yes.
Safety first.
Yes.
All right. So, you know, paying a lot of attention. Breanne and I always stay to the side as much as possible when we're working. Yeah. And we always pay attention to both tails and ears and body tension. Yeah. Because it can be a really sensitive zone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? One of the things I liked, that in a course I took through Equinology, they always recommended having a check hand, which was your hand that's not doing massage.
Yeah, put that on the body.
Yeah, so you have like a loose fist. You're not like, you know, pretend you're holding an egg in your hand. You don't want to crack it. Yeah. You're not squeezing that tight, but you just want to hold on to it. Yeah. And you rest that loose fist somewhere else on the pelvis, and that's the one that's going to be your indicator where
the tension levels are going up.
Absolutely, yeah. Or if that horse is about to kick or something. And I mean, I gotta say, it rarely happens. Yeah. You know, absolutely. If you're tuned in and you're watching that horse and you're feeling, it's rare. But especially when you're first learning these things, you really got to pay attention.
Yeah.
Have that check hand on, for sure.
Absolutely. Good one.
Yeah, and you know what? The other thing I want to talk about with massaging the pelvis is if you find that big tuberococci, that big bone on the side of the pelvis, what I love to do is take my two thumbs. This can be a sensitive area, so just use a little bit of caution in this area. But in front of that tuberococci, and just go up with your two thumbs. Kind of, we call it the tweedle. This is an equinology one too.
That.
Tweedle up, in front of that tuberococci, and that can help with some really nice releases as well.
Totally. There's lots of things that attach into the tuberococci.
Yeah.
So
So I love doing that one.
Okay, sweet. All right. Well, we might have to do a little video with Breanne sometime later.
I know. I'm here like doing the massage techniques in the air.
See all these like hand movements over here. You know, I think what's the takeaway for me is there's lots that we can do for our horses just on a daily basis to help them to be more comfortable and happy. And that's really encouraging. And it you know, I know for myself with Diva, doing body work with her was incredibly connecting. It was actually a pivotal moment in our relationship.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
To build trust.
Absolutely.
Because I learned to feel her and feel her tension and feel what was going on for her.
Yeah.
And that's a huge partnership builder.
Oh yeah, and I think a big part of that is what I always call facilitated relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
How often?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Do our
Thank
horses
you.
have that? You know, and I mean, I'm guilty of it with my own horse. You know, it's like, okay, I've got this long to ride. Go groom, go tack, go. I've got to work on my riding goals. You've got your agenda. You've got to feed. You've got to muck up. You've got to do all these things. But how often do we take, you know, even 15 minutes? Like, you know, like my bodywork sessions with a client will be around an hour. But, you know, even if you take 15 minutes with your own horse, how often do we do that to just go, you know, how can I make you feel good?
Yeah.
How can I make you yawn and relax? Facilitate this relaxation with you. Oh, Riley's really.
Thanks, Riley. Riley's on it.
Yeah. And, you know, just take that time to facilitate relaxation for animals.
Absolutely. I love that. And you know what? How many horses have both Breanne and I met that don't know how to relax at all?
Yeah.
And you know,
Really
I've worked on horses where it's like literally probably 45 minutes into the session and they finally lick and chew.
Oh, yeah.
They figure it out. Start to unwind a little bit. And so cultivating that, because that space is where they learn from, where they adapt from, where they grow from. And that's what we actually want to create under saddle. You know, that's where the true, you know, gymnastic ability comes out, not when they're tense or, you know, like stressed. It comes when they're relaxed and feeling good in their bodies. So.
Absolutely. And yeah, you know, I think, you know, concluding, just, you know, knowing when, you know, what to look for in your horse, knowing who to call, you know, like we were saying before, if you've got, you know, heat, if you've got a lot of pain, if you've got lameness, you know, you want to call your vet first before you start poking around in there. You know, that's an important one. I always stress that with lots of people. You know, maybe it's time to call a body worker, you know, do a couple things at home, you know, play around a little bit. But you do have a team that you can call, you know, you call your equine chiropractor. Maybe it's a saddle fitter that you need, you know, if your saddle's not fitting. Maybe it's, you know, energy work with like Alexa. You know, maybe it's more massage stuff. Maybe it's the farrier and balance. But remembering to look at your horse as a whole and figure out who from the team they need at this particular time. I think is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for many of my clients, like they'll have a team. You know, they'll be working with Breanne. They'll be working with me when necessary. They have a chiropractor. You know, I know it's not always a feasible thing for everybody, but finding those people that can really bring support to you and your horse, and also, you know, there is ways to learn how to, you know, do some of this stuff, which is cool, really cool, right? So building your own repertoire around care is an amazing way to do this as well. And I know for myself, it was super empowering to me to feel like there was more that I could do to create harmony and health in my horse than just like calling someone too, right?
Absolutely. Good point.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
Just feel like a well-equipped horse person.
Completely,
you know? You have the tools. You know what to look for. You know there's some things you can do to help. and you have some confidence in those tools.
Absolutely. And this is not, it's actually relatively simple. I know it feels probably daunting, but it is totally possible.
Yes.
Just letting you know like that it's not far away for sure. So thank you, Breanne.
Well, thanks for having me.
So
it was
great.
So fun.
Breanne and I constantly geek out on this stuff. So this is really nice to actually like commit it to a recording and
share it with the world.
Exactly. Send this out to you so you can see kind of, how we geek out here.
It's usually in the saddle. Usually on a trail ride we're discussing, so what do you think about this part of the pelvis? I saw this the other day.
I need to teach you this technique.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So we could try to record it out there, which would be kind of fun. It would be like some interesting ambient background noise for sure.
Exactly.
But for now, we'll start with this, and then we will get Breanne back and be chatting with her. Breanne is also a guest, one of the pre-recorded webinars for the Whole Horse Apprenticeship, and as I say, we're going to be co-facilitating a retreat just for apprenticeship participants this June 8th, 9th, 10th, I think.
Yep.
So we look forward to maybe seeing you there. If you want more info on that, just go to alexalinton.com/apprenticeship-2018. And before we finish, Breanne, what's the best way to, I've got 2 more questions. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I guess the website is probably the easiest. It's got all the info.
And what's the website?
So I'm www.wcanimalmassage.com.
Okay.
It stands for West Coast Animal Massage.
Perfect.
You can head to the website.
You do have a Facebook page, I believe.
I do,
Okay.
West Coast Animal Massage on Facebook. Feel free to send questions, get in touch, check out some info. Perfect. I like to post little articles. I have a closed Facebook group for clients that we share, so that's kind of a fun one to join. We kind of share findings and, little articles and stuff too, so that's a fun one to join as well.
Okay, awesome. That is great. And before we close today, any other resources that you love right now?
Oh my gosh, I could go on for days.
Okay, let's just pick 2.
So my favorite right now, like today and yesterday, and what I've got my head immersed in right now is it's a book. It'll make your brain swell like when you first start reading it. But it's Dr. Hilary Clayton's book, Conditioning Sport Horses.
Okay.
It's just got so much information on it, and it goes into a lot of different areas in your horse. A lot of it is very, scientific, in-depth. You're looking at ATP molecules. Like, it's nitty-gritty scientific stuff.
The stuff we love.
Yeah. So, we love it. We love it. That's a really, really good one.
Okay, sweet.
That, book by Ruth Mitchell-Galladay, The Facilitated Healing Through Myofascial Release.
Yeah, that looks amazing.
She teaches an amazing course as well.
Sweet.
That I recommend.
Okay.
I really, really love those. I could list off 100 other resources.
I might grab a few more from her so check the podcast page underneath the recording, because I might grab a few more from Breanne.
Yeah, I'm kind of addicted to Amazon. I order every new book and resource going. You know what? The other one I'd love to mention too is online, really easy Google search is Dr. Carrie Ridgway.
Okay.
Has so many great resources.
Okay, great.
He works a lot with Manelo Mendez and with body work. He does body work himself. He's passed away, unfortunately, which is very sad. But he's got some wicked resources online that anyone can access.
Sweet.
So I'd really recommend looking him up too.
Nice. I'm going to do that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Great. Thanks, Breanne.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
You're so welcome. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to have a listen, and I can't wait to see you soon. We've got lots of great things coming up. Okay. Bye for now.